Sabathia, nobody knows this. Sabathia hasn't lost since last August.
Right.
All right. Severino owes the Red Sox because the last time he started against them, he was very mediocre. And Tanaka, we'll keep our fingers crossed. They're going up against Pomeranz, I think, has the first game. Then Price, who's been a disaster, and Porcello. So I was making the joke that the Yankees, because they all Price, Pomeranz, Price, Porcello, that the Yankees are going to pee all over the Red Sox.
Not funny.
I know, I'm good.
Yeah. Would you write that, brother? Was that something you'd write in an article?
I wouldn't put it in the paper.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe
because an editor would take it out.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying. I'm the editor here. I'm the producer. I'm the executive producer. I'm the board op. Maybe I'll take that out of the thing. Anyway, we're going to take a break right now, brother. Are we talking with Pat in the next segment?
Yes, we are.
Is it next segment? Okay.
I thought we were going to go a little longer, but okay.
No, I mean, we take quarterly breaks. Anyway, we're going to talk to Pat Calabria, former Newsday sports writer who covered the Islanders back in the true glory days of the team. We're going to talk about the passing of Bill Torrey. We'll be back right after this. 5-1. Well, actually, don't call us in. By the way, our website is nccradio.org. Also, this show turns into a podcast on Spreaker.com. Also, will be available on iTunes, and we stream on the iHeartRadio network. iHeartRadio app, I should say.
Do you like video games, movies, comics, action figures, anything nerdy? Well, have I got a deal for you. Tune in to 90.3 WHPC. Should I do that again?
Just keep going. Just continue.
Every Monday at 3 p.m. for the only radio show that covers all things nerd culture with the two most fantastic hosts in all of the galaxy, Colton Murray and Justin Greenberg. This show is out of this world galaxy. Come on down. Tune in Mondays at 3 p.m. Hey, why did my music stop? I can't do this acting without my music.
The promo's over. Stop talking. Just play the stupid tagline.
Nerdvana, Mondays at 3 p.m.
Cut it and print it. I need an aspirin.
Shake off the realities of the day, broaden your musical horizons, and embrace the diversity every Monday afternoon at 6 on Revelations. The show offers a potently unique collection of music with an emphasis on themes and rock rarities, an occasional tour de force of blues and soul, mixed with compelling sets of folk and folk rock. I'm Steve Kay, and I've got the perfect soundtrack for your drive home every Monday afternoon at 6 on Revelations, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
A Super Bowl champion, U.S. Congressman, publisher of Long Island Business News, award-winning authors, physical fitness, life coach, and celebrities like Billy Crystal and Eddie Murphy? I had no idea so many awesome people got their start at Nassau Community College.
Well, they're always saying that NCC is where success stories begin. With people like that as graduates, it must be true.
Hello, I'm Dr. Linda Nadian.
And I'm Aurora Workman, the president of Nassau Community College Alumni Association.
Together, we're the hosts of Lion Tales, a show that highlights proud graduates of Nassau Community College. Join us each week when distinguished alumni stop by to share stories, laugh a little, and remind us what things were like when they were students at Nassau Community College.
My fabulous friend Linda and I will also share the latest alumni news and updates, so tune in Tuesdays at 4 p.m. to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, or listen online with the iHeartRadio app.
We're back here from the press box right here on WHPC, streaming on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Leonard. Of course, with me is award-winning sports writer Tim Leonard. And on the phone with us is Pat Calabria. He covered the Islanders during the great glory days of the Bill Torrey years. And we're going to talk about Bill Torrey because he just died this past week, or last week actually now, at the age of 83. Pat, welcome to From the Press Box. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me.
No problem. When did you cover the Islanders when you worked at Newsday? What were the years?
Began in 1975-76 season, and I ended as the beat writer in 84, in 83, 84, and I would help out a little bit after that.
So you were there for the major years. I mean, God.
He had pretty much perfect run right there.
Yeah. You come in with
Pat
Trottier.
Pat Calabria was the good luck charm.
You come in with Trottier and you leave when they lost to Edmonton.
Yes. That's true. Although I have to say, a couple of times I did help out a little, and I was there for the Easter Epic in 1987 down in Washington.
Oh, I remember that game.
That was it was a game that never ended.
That was because I was actually in a bar, and I looked at the TV and it was like 2:30 in the morning or something like that, and they were still playing hockey. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, well, two things shocked me. One, that it went 4 overtimes, and 2, that you were in a bar. I was shocked about that.
Yeah, both shocking.
That could be shocking, yes. Let's talk about Bill Torrey, man. The Islanders don't happen without this guy pulling the strings. He was there from the beginning. How did he first get hired, by the way, with the Islanders? Why him instead of other people?
Well, Roy Bowe, who was the original owner and wasn't really steeped in hockey, he took a recommendation about Bill, who had worked for the Oakland Seals, who worked for Charlie Finley.
Right.
And I suppose if you can work for Charlie Finley, you can work anywhere.
Exactly.
So it was a recommendation, and it turned out great, obviously, because Bill was a very smart guy and a very patient guy, and he knew right away, and he said many times that nobody was going to help him in the draft. He knew he was going to get everybody's worst player, and he knew that they weren't going to be there very long. So he told Roy Bowe, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to build, we're going to draft, and it's going to take a little time. And to everyone's surprise, it only took 3 years before they got to within one game of the finals.
Well, if you look at their draft, I mean, everyone always talks about Potvin, but you know what? Bossy wasn't the number one pick in the draft when he was chosen. He was, number 15, I think, with the Islanders?
Number 15.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
And I think it was either 3 or 4 right wings went ahead of him.
Yes.
Because the knock on him was that he didn't play defense.
Right, and the story that was passed down to me was that he was described as a home run hitter, and Al Arbor said, let's go for the home run hitter.
Yeah. What's wrong with home runs?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just one of the great scores. But it's funny because the Islanders never had really the first pick for the draft many times, but they got all these great players. It's just amazing that the insight that Bill Torrey and I guess his staff too. We can't not talk about them too. Were able to pick these great players, these Hall of Famers, many in cases.
Yeah, Jimmy Devellano was the chief scout and was later became general manager of the Red Wings and helped build that dynasty. But Jimmy was a very smart guy, lived and breathed hockey. I spent 2 weeks with him on a scouting trip, one time. He lived and breathed hockey, and they had a Western scout named Tex Eamon who was, responsible for recommending Brian Trottier and a lot of their Western players who came from, Western Canada. So, they had a very good staff. They drafted character people. They did not draft malcontents or people who were going to cause problems, with only a few exceptions. And so they built a culture of winning, but also a culture of people who were character people and behaved appropriately.
Well, I mean, and that's a lot of times what you need to win a championship. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily that you need a bunch of Boy Scouts, but if guys get along and guys have kind of a single-mindedness to them, I mean, we saw that in the late late 90s with the New York Yankees. If you can get a group of guys together like that, you have a good chance to win a championship.
Well, that's very true. What the Islanders did was later followed by a lot of other teams, including the Devils, who built their Stanley Cups around a core of people who had been there a long time. The Danicos, the Bruce Drivers, people like that. And what the Islanders did is look how many players were together for that championship run.
Yeah.
They would tweak it a little bit year to year, but they had a core of players who they knew each other, they liked each other, they relied on each other, they trusted each other on the ice, and that was a winning formula.
For sure.
Now, it starts with the hiring of Al Arbor. What did Bill Torrey see in Al Arbor? Because, he really hadn't done much coaching, I don't think, before that. what? I mean, because really, you talk about character people. I don't think malcontents make it very far on an Al Arbor team.
No.
It was actually Jimmy Devellano, who worked for the St. Louis Blues with Al, who recommended Al to Bill when Jimmy was hired by the Islanders. Al had coached the Blues. He had been a very solid but unspectacular defenseman during his NHL career. And what Al did was enforce a code of relying on each other, trusting each player, trusting the other, and trusting the coach. And one thing I will say, and by the way, Al was one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life, not just in sports, anywhere. But what Al did, he enforced discipline. If you remember, in Dennis Potvin's rookie season, he missed a bus to Philadelphia, and Al did not wait for him. When it was time for the bus to leave, he left. And
Dennis
so
Potvin's calling a cab.
Right. It became very clear. But what I really remember is in 1975 when the Islanders were down 3-0 in the playoffs to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and no team had come back from being down 3-0 in over 30 years. Al called a team together at a practice, and he said, if there is anybody who doesn't believe we can still win this series, pack up your gear right now. I just want every one of you guys to play each shift like it's your last. We're not looking at one game. We're not looking at 4 games. We're looking at each shift, one shift at a time. And when you think about it, that's how you break down what seems to be a monumental task. I kind of liken it to, when you're young and you have a young family and you have kids and you buy a swing set. When you get that swing set out of the box, it looks like impossible to put together. But if you do one task at a time, eventually the swing set gets built. And it was a great speech, and of course they came back to win 4 straight games.
You know what I remember about that series? It was on NBC at the time, and there was a banner, I believe, at the Nassau Coliseum, and it said Toronto 1942.
That's right.
And no one knew what that was at the time, and it wasn't like you can just go to Google and search it up. And by the end of the game, they found out that was the last time a team had come back from 3-0.
That's
right.
right.
And I still remember that as a 12-year-old kid.
At that point, I think it was the only time it happened.
So, let's talk about Tim. You got the next question.
Pat, I just tell us what kind of guy was Bill Torrey? Because I mean, we only see what the small little clips. I mean, how many times back then was a GM interviewed? But I just want to know what kind of guy was he? Was he easy to talk to? Was he funny? Was he paranoid? I mean, was he a good person to cover? I mean, the fact that he actually spoke to the media, that's a plus, obviously, which we don't necessarily have these days. But just kind of talk about what kind of guy he was.
Well, first of all, he was a very smart guy, but he was a lot of fun to be around. And like I said, he and Al established this culture of respect for the players, for the fans, and for the media. I mean, the media and general managers, they don't always get along, but there was respect there, and the players were disciplined, and they treated the Islanders they treated the media with respect, and that came from Al and from Bill. I enjoyed talking to Bill. We were close. We would argue about certain players, and sometimes the arguments would get heated, but it was all with respect. He was funny. He was really very funny, and he would. I remember trying to talk him into hiring Herb Brooks to replace Al Arbor after Al had retired. And we had a good discussion about it, and he had his reasons for not doing it, but he said it's a really interesting idea. So it could always have a good give and take with Bill, and he was funny. I remember he came to my wedding, and he looked at my wife and my new wife, and he looked at me and he said, "She looks a lot better than you do."
Nice.
So he was a really really good guy.
Did he? By the way, did he always wear a bow tie?
Always.
Always.